YouTube talking and had a little bit of glitch on my camera, on my screen, but it seems to be okay. So if you see anything funky, just let me know. Text me something, but it seems to be working now. I was talking about the awareness recognition. There were things that I was saying that I'm not going to go over. I'm just going to come right to the topic. The awareness recognition, it's funny because awareness becomes so normal. This is this is the struggle because it's such a part of my experience now that to talk about it is like to talk about breathing. But I realize that the awareness recognition isn't obvious for everyone. One thing you might do is to begin looking from what's looking. I remember being in my bathtub one time years ago, and it was like I kept listening to the teacher say things like that. And I had a hand up or something like this that was looking at me, like pretending that somebody's looking at me. And I just thought, what if it was kind of pointing to um, how I was looking, and so that I just turned my hand this way, as if this thing that ever was looking at me was looking out. And I just kind of had that. I was in the bathtub, I think, just looking from this, a shift in perception, because the idea is that everybody in my life had been looking at me. See that? They're looking at me, but what am I? And to know what I am, I have to recognize what is looking. Instead of going to my mind, in the most direct sense, I need to look from what's looking. And that's what I did is just switch my hand, and that helped me. And from then on, every time I took a moment of awareness, I looked from what's looking. But to look from what's looking is challenging when you have stories coming through all day. So I was sharing about that and then the technical issue last time. Your body, when you're having thoughts that aren't strongly velcroed in the body, when you don't feel a strong sensation or emotion, notice how easy it is just to notice them and allow them. Try this out for yourself. Maybe you just never have noticed this. Just notice and allow the thoughts when they're not strongly velcroed. And in noticing them, it's an effortless noticing. It's just literally, it's like a bird flying into your viewpoint. Think of it this way. There's a bird flying in over here, but you're not aware of it, but it's here. So it's just like this, that noticing it. And then in noticing it, something happens. The identification is loosened just in the noticing. So if you don't notice it, the thought can hover around, be believed, be repeated, in some cases even be obsessed on, simply because there's no gentle awareness at it on it. That's the reason. So just what is it that you're thinking right now? Don't think about what you're thinking. Turn and just notice it like a bird flying in and let it be there. Get used to practicing this on thoughts that are not strongly velcroed. The thoughts that are strongly velcroed, you may need inquiry or something else if it really grabs you. But many, many thoughts throughout the day are not like that. So again, look from what's looking. That's just a starting place. Awareness doesn't really have a source right here, what I'm saying, or right here in the eyes. But to look from what's looking shifts the way that you're relating to life. Think about it. You're walking through the earth, you're walking on the earth, and what you're doing for a sense of self is you're not awake to much of anything, not awake to what's looking, like not aware that you are the awareness, and also not aware, for example, that you're looking for your identity almost exclusively in thoughts up here. So now think about that. If the awareness is caught up in the identification with all these thoughts, there's just simply no room to recognize itself. Constantly going into thoughts for identity. And we were taught this, so you're doing exactly as you were taught. But now it's time to transform, to wake up. I just noticed that you're walking around the earth and you, so to speak, and getting your identity from these thoughts. There's no awareness of the awareness coming out of your eyes. There's no being present to what's present. None of that when we're identified constantly in the thoughts. So that's where you start. You're already there. You're already identified with thoughts. So start there. Start by just noticing. Like I said, whatever the current thought is, just notice it and allow it. Because in noticing it, it loosens the identification, the strength of that. And so that thought can fall away. But watch. So these are the thoughts that the identified thoughts that you're having. It's like you're constantly identified with them throughout the day. No recognition of what's where. Not really, or very little until there's more. um, but as you start noticing thoughts, it's waking up that which is already aware. That which is noticing the thought is the awareness that I'm referring to. So it's like you're waking it. You're there's an awakening happening as soon as you start to notice a thought. You're waking up to what is aware of the thought, not just believing the thought, thinking it, but the, here I am, awareness, witnessing it. So you get really good at that, at just seeing things come through, witnessed and allowed to fall away. And when it falls away, what is that? It falls away into nothing, literally. So when it falls away into nothing, that nothing, that space, to recognize that, because that is not a thought. You can have the thought space, the thought awareness, but it actually falls away into something that is not itself a thought. And so as it falls away, can you rest as the awareness, as the space, so to speak, that it fell away into, and take a moment to recognize that? Even if it's just a short moment, and can you take those short moments throughout the day over and over and over again? And then just don't be against inquiry because it's going to help you so much. Because there will be times in the day where, like, when this set of thoughts that has you captivated, that you're identified with, as you're noticing some of those and resting as awareness, you're going to come across some that are really sticky. And it's going to feel like when you look at them or try to notice them, they're just stuck or totally believed, or they, you just, yeah, you believe them. You're not even able to witness them. That's because those kinds of thoughts have things stuck with them. As we've said, they are Velcro to emotions or sensations in the body and or other words and pictures. That's where inquiry comes in. But and this is where people get, I know this is where people get caught up, and this is why we've given you inquiry so that you don't have to get stuck here. But like they hear this instruction to be aware of what's aware or look from what's aware, they get that. And then some of the random, not so identified thoughts can come through and they notice those. But then something comes up and it's really sticky and it's usually old. And the way of just noticing and allowing and resting doesn't seem to work because you're completely taken over by it. That's when you go into inquiry. I'm not going to go into inquiry now, but strongly velcroed things are perfect for inquiry because they deconstruct those things that are stuck together, words and pictures stuck with feelings and sensations. They deconstruct them, making them feel emptier, lighter, helping them fall away. And it's really important to meet inquiry, to meet these very triggered points, these triggered things with inquiry, because That helps the awareness recognition. Because if you don't do inquiry on some things that are really triggering, those kinds of things have like a gravitational pull towards them. So you'll whenever that kind of thought or that situation comes up, you'll be taken over by it. And it'll be a strong sense of like, I've lost it. I got it versus I lost it. A little inquiry goes a long way in dealing with the I got it, I lost it. But if all you're doing is your practice is just meditation or just resting as awareness, you may have difficulty. You may continue to experience this longer than you need to. The I got it, I lost it. The I lost it is the strong identification, the strong Velcro that you're not doing inquiry on. Hear me? I know you know who you are because I meet you every day. There is no reason to suffer into oscillation. Those points at which you become lost in something or pulled into something, perfect for deconstructive inquiry, takes you deeper, helps you abide more as awareness. And then as soon as you look at something with inquiry, you just come back to resting and noticing. Let that be your home all day long, every day, is returning to the recognition that I am what's looking. I am what's looking. I am that. Not just reinforcing it with the mind, but reinforcing it in experience. It's not enough to say, I go out throughout the day and say, I am what's looking, or I am the awareness. That is just the beginning. It's the actual recognition of what it is that you're saying. I am what's looking. Can you experience that directly? Instead of taking yourself for this moment to be a thought, instead of saying that you're that, I am what is looking. Coming back to that experientially throughout the day, over and over and over in little short moments. So you don't have to be like, I am what's looking, and then just rest there for a long period of time. That's not even necessary because as you rest as awareness, what it does is it shows you other things that are arising. So you can just notice those or inquire and return to the rest. It's essentially your whole thing is being integrated. Your whole story is there for you to see and kind of fall away into awareness. So if you're having a short moment of awareness and you get, I lost it again, or you get triggered, it's perfect. It's showing you a part of your experience that you haven't integrated yet, that you still identify with. Going into inquiry from there helps with the awareness recognition because that thing isn't pulling you anymore. See that? It's so important inquiry is on the awareness recognition because if there's something that you haven't deconstructed, it's always going to have a pull, right? Like a trauma or a story, when it gets triggered, it's always going to pull you into an identification until you learn to be more skillful with it, right? Deconstruct it with inquiry, and that helps just coming back so you're not pulled into that as easily. So that if it comes back again, you can meet it with inquiry, but over time it gets deconstructed so that it just stops appearing in that strong form, that trigger, and that helps for the balancing out, so to speak, the homeostatic abiding in awareness. Difficult to abide in awareness when you've got a bunch of uninquired things, unresolved issues that you think that the answer is just to witness. It's not. You can witness these things. It just isn't very skillful when there's a lot of unconscious Velcro. I've talked about this so much that it should be clear to you guys what I'm referring to. Go check out my other videos if you're not sure what I mean by the unconscious, somatic, repressed stuff. That's as much as you can say about the awareness recognition, really, is have at it, stay at it, short moments, look from what's aware, notice thoughts, allow them, allow their natural trajectory. So when a thought comes through that's not strongly Velcroed, its natural trajectory is just to arise, hang out a bit, and then fall away. But if we're not aware of it, if we're not aware of thoughts, what they can do is they can arise, hang out for a bit, and because of their believability, they don't really fall away in that same way. It's like they become part of the operating system. We believe it. So if you want to start unbelieving things, turn your awareness towards these thoughts that arise. And don't just let them arise where you believe them. When they arise, see them and let them fall into the space of the unknown. That's that unknown, the space of the unknown here where thoughts fall away and all there is this awakeness. That's that's what we're talking about. Everything that you think you know about yourself, about others, and about the world is going to arise to awareness. As you're doing these practices, let it all fall. Everything falls into the unknown space while you recognize what is awake. There'll be times when you have to come down and feel in the body. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do when you have a strong thought, like something that brings up a lot of anger or sadness is okay, you can notice the thought, right? But notice also the strong energy with it. Turn towards the energy, the feeling in the body. Just let it be there. Stay with it quietly. A lot of times, if you'll just feel the feeling that's Velcro to a thought, that's all that's needed. It's almost like your body's saying, just come down here and feel this. My God. So when you start doing it, it rewards you. When you start feeling feelings directly, the thoughts start to get weaker because you're finally doing what's needed. Feel it directly. Now, you can do that on a lot of thoughts and emotions, but some you can't. As I've said, like when a contraction arises, that's not just your everyday emotion. So when that's there, when your contraction shows up, inquiry, remember, repression, emotional repression is inside that contraction. Trauma unresolved. Old deficiency stories are inside that contraction, hidden. So when the main thing that you're feeling in the body during your awareness practice is a contraction or a tightness or a physical pain, coming down to feel it like that is not going to be that fruitful. Too much stuff is hidden in that. Go into inquiry. And I've done tons of videos on that. So I'm not going to repeat that. But what I call everyday primary emotions arising, anger, fear, sadness, grief, anxiety, you'll know the nature of your belief by your body. So if a feeling comes up, if you're thinking something and a feeling comes up and you just rest with it, and the feeling just kind of moves away and leaves as the thought leaves, that's not going to be a strong thing for you. It's not going to be a strong belief or a strong trauma necessarily. But if you see something, if you feel something come through and it like grips you, your body, you feel it strongly and you really in the thoughts, that's what inquiry is for right there. Because if you just try to notice that, it can easily pull you in, right? Just notice how these strongly Velcro things easily pull you into thinking, analyzing, storytelling, justification, blame, all that. Use inquiry to deconstruct things. But many things are noticeable. That's the point. Noticing from awareness. As soon as you notice something, you take its power away. If there's a thought out here like, oh, my day is the worst day ever. So this thought is there, right? Not aware of it. So you're identified with it. You simply think that's you. Identified with it means not aware of it. And so there's feelings with that, right? So imagine the kind of day you're going to have. It's not going to be great because you believe that, you're identified with that. It's a simple matter of turning towards that. And instead of believing it, hearing it or seeing it spelled out, noticing it until it, and so giving you, if you want to give that thought power, don't be aware of it. If you want to go on believing that the day is shitty, don't turn your awareness towards that thought. But if you're ready to be free of that, just simply turning directly towards the thought and without analysis or judgment, just letting it be there. That goes so far. I'm surprised at how some teachings don't talk about noticing or witnessing thoughts. But let me say this. before I go. It is absolutely important. I know this now because the people that are coming to me now who are having a lot of issues in their body, for example, unresolved trauma, just emotional repression, many of them did not pick up this Vipassana style practice that we pick up here in the inquiry. So we do that kind of practice here with the Kill Bee inquiries, meaning flexing the muscle of noticing thought and letting thought fall away throughout the day. Believe it or not, there are some teachings that don't talk about that. Here's the problem. When you're just talking about resting as awareness, but not flexing the muscle of individual thoughts that come up to see them, the process of identification, disidentification can be more difficult. What are you disidentifying from? If you're not noticing the thoughts that are coming through, if you're not noticing the thoughts, you're probably identified with them. That's one problem. So, noticing thoughts Vipassana style is very important for the overall trajectory of awakening, in my view, because I keep seeing people come to me, and what I'm doing with them is I'm starting to get them to just notice thoughts and feelings. And that's going a long way for them to embody the recognition, to deal with their stuff. But if your entire practice is just coming back to awareness only, not noticing things that come through, that's going to be challenging for you when trauma arises, when the deep core stuff comes up and it's going to. If there's anything you could take from Scott Killeby videos post 2018, is he's telling you, I'm telling you, I've been working with people all over the world. They're all experiencing it, which is that at some point along the way in the awareness recognition, your shit comes up, like your deep stuff. If you haven't exercised the muscle of just noticing things, individual things within awareness, that's going to be deeply challenging when a lot of those things come up and they're tied to very strong sensations in the body. Why have that corrected on the end like that? Why wait your entire practice to begin flexing that muscle? Why? If it's going to end in potential suffering, correct it now. You don't want to be one of the people that comes to me later and says, I rested as awareness, but I didn't do the noticing thoughts thing. And I didn't come down and feel things. And then you say to me, now my world is fucked up because a bunch of shit is coming up and there's nothing I can do with it. Because if I just go back to resting as awareness, it's overwhelming. I'm too identified with it. That is not a good place to begin Vipassana style noticing because you're dealing with really scary, painful stuff at that point. Get used to just noticing thought that is on stuff that's much more benign. Flex that muscle of being awake to your thoughts, not just awake to awakeness, awake to nothing, but awake to thoughts. You'll be glad that you did when the shame comes up later, when the trauma comes up later, when the emotional repression has to be dealt with the anger, and it will happen. It will. It will come up. Some version of that will come up, and you're going to need that ability to notice. Because part of what I would do with you is to go into inquiry on that. And inquiry definitely includes noticing thoughts. So start now. That's all I'm saying. The awareness recognition ought to include noticing thoughts. And noticing thoughts fall away. It's just like meditation, essentially Vipassana style meditation, but it's walking it, living it throughout the day, all day, and coming back to recognizing the awareness that's looking. All of that. Thanks, guys.